Ukraine has totally changed its strategy in Kharkiv Oblast. Now there are numerous of the strikes on the Russian facilities. There were many of the reports about the Russian convoys, supply lines, and the most interesting command centers being kaputted by HIMARS, and Ukraine uses that a lot. I believe that almost all of the Ukrainian HIMARS systems are now working in Kharkiv or Sumy Oblast. It's been confirmed that Ukraine hit many of the air defense systems, so the operation for Ukrainian defense is very successful, judging on the resources Ukrainian army currently has. But there will be more resources coming. For example, today Jake Sullivan announced that the United States will send one more package, probably next week or the week after the next one. We're gonna see it very, very soon. So little by little, Ukraine receives what it needs for the proper defense. So I believe 1 month and Russia would not be able to gain the ground in Ukraine. Because for now they're still able to do it, so now let's review the military map and later on we're gonna check out the latest news about Ukrainian topic. Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go. So the most critical area for Ukraine is not the Kharkiv Oblast anymore because Russian advancement there was stopped. The hottest spot is now Ocheretine, the place where Russia advanced, as you remember, from Avdiivka. They were really successful taking the ground in a matter of 10 days or something like that. I would say that the Russian army was just lucky and the Ukrainian army also did the mistakes, especially in this region, by regrouping some of the brigades. But Russian army also learns on its own mistakes, so the current Russian army is better, I would say, compared to what it was in 2022. And speaking about pure numbers, we know that in 2022 Russia attacked Ukraine having just 180,000 soldiers, and now totally they have more than 500,000 soldiers based in Ukraine on occupied territories, plus they have some of the group near Ukrainian border. They were able to mobilize lots of the Russian men to join their army as well as foreigners. Now let's go to the changes. So it was yesterday and it is today. So Russia moved over here, they took this lake under control and these 3 lines. So they tried to expand the bridgehead and they're quite successful with they taking more fields. Also they tried to go to Pokrovsky village, so yesterday and today. My friends, if you want to support the job that I do on YouTube daily, you may also join my Patreon page. You may find it in the video description just below or scan the QR code available on the screen. Thank you so much for your awesome support. Nevertheless, judging on the Russian videos which they film from their, for example, motorcycles, they suffer a lot. They have a road of death from Ocheretine, one more road of death, with lots of the tanks, BMPs and supply vehicles being just demolished. That's why, yes, they're able to take some ground, but not a lot. For every kilometer they gain, they suffer tremendous, absolutely crazy losses. But it seems like they don't care, they continue to push and go forward. It's just crazy for me. The video with other motorcycle, it is Ural, the motorcycle with a sidecar. I wonder if Russians brought it with them to Ukraine. Well, I think that they just stole it from locals, and again you can see lots of the vehicles on the way. They're all demolished and yeah, they suffer with their supplies. I'll publish the full video on my Telegram channel, so you may check it out. Also, Russia tries to attack from Novomikhailivka village. They want to propel forward, but unsuccessful for now. There are tons of the videos from the place, how their convoys are just being demolished by Ukrainian FPVs and other tools. Yeah, we have some of the pictures from the place. It's no longer a sensation for the Russian army. The picture is very, very similar to every of their assaults. I wonder how many BMPs or tanks Russia has right now, because according to those images, if we collect and count everything, those tanks and BMPs that Russia has already lost would be enough for a big army, bigger than probably French army or German army combined. But Russia is still capable to produce the armored vehicles. Here is probably the new BMP-3 which they use. It's the most capable one they have. Still far to reach Bradley's capabilities, but nevertheless it's good. And this is the job of our FPV drone operators. They kaboomed the tank which was hit or probably just rolled over the mine, so the Russian crew left the tank and later on it was finished by Ukrainian army. Yeah, obviously it's better to trophy it, but just imagine you need to go there, change the caterpillar, make some repairs under the enemy fire, so it's better just to kaboom it and forget about it. That's what happened. The occupied territory of Luhansk, there Ukraine was successful in targeting the Russian air defense system Tor. Tor was firing some of the missiles, probably in an attempt to hit some of the Ukrainian drone, but it didn't work and Tor was kaboomed. Right, just right now we have received the news that Ukraine hit one more Russian oil refinery facility, this time in Rostov Oblast. I guess that the UAV was used for this purpose. And as you can see, the strike was successful. The Russian oil refinery is on fire. Probably it's going to be stopped for some period of time. And Russia is in lack of the technologies to repair and to produce new equipment for their refineries, because most of that equipment was produced by the Western countries like, for example, Germany. Indeed, it's on fire. Well, tomorrow I'm gonna find the spot on the map and show you, because for now I'm out of clue about the geographic position of the place. But from what I see, the war is nearby because we have the reflection in the water. So if we take the front lines in general, Russia stalled in Kharkiv Oblast. They tried to attack near Bakhmut. They also advanced in Ocheretina from Avdiivka direction. They were stopped in Novomikhailivka and have just partial success near Marinka, but they move also on the south, taking Robotyne under control little by little. It's not yet fully under their control, but they'll do it. So basically there are two of the directions where the Russian army is more or less capable, but still it's early to say about their advertised summer campaign. Yet we do not see the huge jump of the Russian army. They simply do not have resources for that, or they do not show them. But I think that they should have already performed their strike if they plan to do it, because soon Ukraine will obtain more weaponry. And from the videos which Russian soldiers publish in social media, we know that they were not ready for the strike on Kharkiv Oblast. It was their pure luck that they were able to get more ground out there. Maybe because Ukraine wasn't really properly prepared for that, let's speak honestly, but nevertheless, Russian assault there failed. Right now it was stopped. And there's the probability that Ukraine would push the Russian army out from its land in this region. So I would say that for Russia it's too late to perform the major strike on Ukraine if they wanted to do it. Ukraine already has obtained lots of the weaponry and continue to use those on the Russian territory too. But what's about the Russian reaction? For the first time, Putin commented the strikes on Belgorod and Kursk Oblast when Ukraine uses the Western-made weaponry. Let's read out what he said. So Putin definitely wants to respond on the permission from the Western countries for Ukraine to attack the Russian bases on the Russian territory, but he is not willing to strike the Western countries directly. No, he wants to supply the long-range Russian-made weaponry to the countries which are now in conflict with the Western democracies. Well, I think here he meant Middle East, some of the pro-Iranian proxies which now might obtain the Russian weaponry and strike, for example, American bases in the region. But actually those proxies done it already before with Iranian-made weaponry, and honestly I don't think that Russia would supply lots of the long-range missiles or something like that to those countries, because they need this weaponry themselves. So all of the narratives that Russia would nuke Western countries if Western weaponry would be used against Russia on their own territory, we see that 100% it is just nonsense. Putin is not willing to do it, at least on the current stage, and soon, if Ukrainian army is successful in Volchansk, for example, with the help of the Western-made weaponry, I think that the United States of America would agree on the usage of ATACMS against the Russian bases. In that case, Ukraine would be able to target the Russian military airfields, which is a game changer. Alright, what else Putin said today on a conference? He continued to say that Zelensky is not a legit president of Ukraine because according to Ukrainian constitution, there is no prolongation of the duties of the president, even in case of the martial law, which is now partially being introduced in Ukraine, and indeed there is no such a remark in Ukrainian constitution. The only thing that in 2016 a special law was taken that presidential elections might not be conducted in case of the implementation of the martial law state in Ukraine. So Putin is using those gaps in Ukrainian constitution to justify what he really needs. And he needs to get rid of Zelensky because Zelensky blocked all of the negotiations with Russia, and especially with Putin. It also means that Russia is not willing to negotiate with Ukraine either, even though Putin continued to say that they're really for the peace talks. But those peace talks are basically capitulation of Ukraine. Not President Zelensky personally, but Putin wants to change Zelensky for his proxy president, for example, ex-Ukrainian president Yanukovych, who was delivered to Belarus, who was delivered to Belarus, then Russia started the full-scale war in Ukraine. So Russia had this plan and probably still has. Openly saying that the war will continue, they have no one to sign the peace agreement with. Russia has no imperialistic ambitions, Putin says. Russia is not willing to restore the Soviet Union. We see this rhetoric from the Western countries, and there are no plans to attack NATO countries from the Russian side. Just to recall, 5 days before the full-scale war in Ukraine, Russian elite Lavrov and Putin, they say that they had no plans to attack Ukraine. We shouldn't believe Russian regime and judge them only on their actions. And their actions is to capture, occupy, destroy, grab and loot. So definitely Russia for now is the aggressor country. So NATO should count that and be ready for the possible Russian strike also on their countries, because the current NATO member countries like Lithuania, Estonia and Latvia were the former Soviet republics, so the part of the USSR, and Russia definitely wants to restore it. So if Putin says we don't want to restore the Soviet Union, he means that we want to restore it. The German Defense Minister Pistorius called Germany to reinforce itself for the possible escalation and potential war with Russia, which might start till 2029. He calls for more investment into the military production and in German military in general. He also asked for the conscription service renewal, because Russia changed its economy for the war rails, and there are no signs from any kind of the European country that they do the same step. Also, he asked to continue supporting Ukraine, because if Ukraine loses the war against Russia, it would cost much more for the European Union. The possible war against united Ukrainian and Russian army. Yes, for now it sounds very strange, because most of the Ukrainians do not like Russia. But if we look at the history, not far away actually, Russia intervened into Georgia in 2008. There were heavy fights with heavy losses from both of the sides, so Georgians also hated Russia, but miraculously now they have the pro-Russian government, which Russia put over there somehow. They introduced the same laws as in Russia, banning the free speech and cutting the rights for minorities. And with all of those protests, people cannot do anything. The same happened in Chechnya. Chechens were really fighting against Russian intervention. They were fighting for freedom. And now their country is just slaved to Russia, and Kadyrov says that his people are the greatest Putin's supporters. Putin might establish his own puppet elite, and people who mostly tired of the war, under the constant strikes, without electricity, who like to live their normal life, would agree on everything. That's why the military support of Ukraine is very, very important. We don't need to have this combined army attacking NATO or something else. Again, I understand that it sounds unreal, but I just told you the examples in the history, just a couple of decades ago. And it seems like our Western allies understand that. That's why they want to secure the sovereignty of Ukraine. Not because they love Ukrainians and they want to protect us from Russia, but they're afraid to face this combined army together with Ukrainians who are now very trained. So yeah, obviously it's better to support Ukraine. And we know that Germany is ordering 20 more Eurofighter fighter jets to their air force. Awesome news, the United States is preparing for a new military support of Ukraine. The long term, we're speaking about 50 billion United States dollars, which will be covered by the Russian assets freezed in the United States and also maybe in Europe. But to confiscate the part of the Russian assets in Europe, we need the agreement of all of the EU members together with Hungary and Viktor Orban. By the way, Orban's friend Fico is feeling much better and he wants to get back to his duties probably at the end of this month or the next one. Surviving 3 shots, well, it's a huge deal. The Politica source says that the Ukrainian officials are pushing the United States to boost the pilot training in the United States as well as in Europe, because the pace of the training which we now currently have is not enough to prepare many of the Ukrainian pilots, so there could be some of the issues with that. And as we see, definitely training takes time. Joe Biden visits France and there will be also meetings between European leaders. I guess Ukraine will be also presented out there and there will be new discussions about the Ukrainian support. At the same time, we know that Joe Biden hesitates to attend a peace meeting in Switzerland, which will start in around 10 days. But President Macron will go to Switzerland for the peace conference. Russia stops the operation of the biggest turboprop transport airplane in the world, which they used for their army. We are speaking about Antonov 22 Ante. This aircraft was designed in the Ukrainian Soviet Republic a long time ago by the Antonov Design Bureau. It's kind of the old airplane, but very, very capable. The problem for Russia is that many of the parts were still made in Ukraine, like for example unique engines for this airplane and propeller blades. So Russia simply cannot maintain those. If you ask me personally, I think this is the most interesting and beautiful in a way airplane from all of the Antonovs. It looks like it came from Hayao Miyazaki anime, kind of the unique design. Guys, you know that China together with Russia want to implement their separate peace plan. And some of the countries from so-called global south tend to join it also. The Chinese Minister of the Foreign Affairs Wang Yi said that 26 countries totally support this initiative. Well, obviously Ukrainian initiative is supported by many more countries, but still they create a separate camp involving kind of the powerful countries, well, China itself, also Saudi Arabia with its oil, and Brazil, one of the biggest economies in Latin America or South America. It means that our world is definitely divided. And the war in Ukraine is just a first step for the conflict escalation. Hopefully it will be just the economic conflict, the Cold War as it was between Soviet Union and the United States. So for sure it will arise again. This time not even between Russia and the United States, but between China and the United States. Russia is so dependent on China that it follows Chinese policy, nothing more. And I'm sure that Putin wouldn't have started the war without the agreement from China. Joe Biden signed a special directive which could protect the Ukrainian United States border from illegal immigrants. It doesn't mean that the border will be closed completely, but if there will be lots of the illegal immigrants, they will be deported very, very soon. Also, there will be more asylum officers hired as well as guards. Well, I haven't seen yet the document itself to tell you more details about it, but some step is done to cope with illegal immigration. First of all, I think that because it's the election year and every candidate wants to show that he takes care about United States border and many other issues. About the Biden himself, there's the article published by the Wall Street Journal saying that behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of sleeping. Participants in the meetings with Joe Biden say that sometimes he performed poorly at times. However, the most of the critics is coming from the red camp. And it's hard to confirm that because it's behind the closed doors. Well, I don't personally think that Joe Biden is mentally ill or he is unable to perform his duties. No. But you might have some slow thinking sometimes if you are 81. And judging on his open speech in Congress, I think that he performs quite well. But anyways, obviously age matters. And for Biden, it's important to surround himself with professionals, with capable people. However, there is the critics of people he chose. For example, if Biden wins in the next elections, if something goes wrong with him personally, a president of the United States will be Kamala Harris. And all of the people whom I spoke with personally about the question, they all say that they don't like that scenario. So hopefully Biden is going to be well. Kamala Harris got a good approval rating before in 2021, but now it's vice versa. The disapproval is almost 50%, approval is 38%. I think that is why many of the Americans are swinging to vote for the red ones, because basically they wouldn't like Kamala to become the United States president in case something goes wrong with Joe Biden. But you know, guys, I just played with the polls a little, and if I select, for example, Congress, it has more disapproval rating than approval. It's tremendous difference out here, and as well as for every sort of the candidate, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, doesn't matter. People just do not like politics in general, I think. Even a Supreme Court has a huge disapproval rating. So maybe you know more, tell me in the comments, whom do you support? It could be not just Joe Biden or Donald Trump, you may put your candidate in the comment section. We're gonna see and compare. So after all, the Wall Street Journal here shared their own bias about this topic without no real evidence provided, and they just relied on personal opinion of someone who participated in the meeting with Joe Biden. Well, it is not objective at all, and we cannot say it 100% that definitely Joe Biden is something is wrong with Joe Biden. I think that definitely he's just slow sometimes, but you know, Donald Trump is just a little younger and he might face the same stuff, and there were the videos showing that he definitely sometimes slow as well. Taiwan looked at the Ukrainian experience and they also started to produce the drone boats to cope with the threat from China. I just wonder why did they paint those with some sort of the amber color? Because it increases visibility? Well, maybe they're on the test stage. Ukraine has already proved the effectiveness of the drone boats. Well, sometimes you might have trouble in entering the base, but if we speak about the possible Chinese intervention, then they will just go across the open seas. Obviously, the drone boats will hit their ships. Taiwan really needs to produce those boats as massive as possible and very quickly. Russia is very concerned about the Kerch bridge and they put more and more air defense systems near Kerch. They also built this fence alongside the road just not to let people to take photos of the air defense systems. I think that Russian intelligence is already aware that Ukraine will strike the Kerch bridge. It will happen very soon. This month or the next one, we're gonna see if I was right. And obviously there is some sort of the propaganda that the previous ex-Ukrainian president was much better than the current one, and all of that depopulation area loss is all because of Russia, not because of Zelensky personally. But it is clearly a manipulation saying that Yanukovych is a good president. He wasn't good at all, but Ukraine was without war, and that is why it was much better to live in that country, not in today's Ukraine. So yeah, please filter the social media. Yanukovych is just Putin's puppet, that's it. According to some of the data, Ukraine is moving out the forces from Robotyne and from that region in general. Ukraine created some sort of the new defense line, but for me it's hard to prove it. So we're gonna see it in the nearby future, whether Ukraine withdraws its forces from this side. My friends, and now don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.